What up, guys? So today we got a question from Matt, who's got an interesting cardio problem. So he says that when he came into jiu-jitsu, it was much like the same for all of us, right? He was out of breath constantly, was struggling to finish classes and roll, and had to sit rounds out, all that stuff. He says that he started, putting in a lot of work, got in better shape, started eating better, all the normal stuff, got in better shape, but he says it's reached kind of a peak. He can't seem to push it anymore. And he says that people that started around the same time as him seem to be getting better and better shape, but for some reason, he's stuck. Now, he's not overweight or anything like that. He's just saying his ability to roll hard. He just can't roll as hard as some of these guys, even though he's just as young as them and everything else. And so he sends me this message like, hey, have you ever seen this before where someone simply, their cardio just doesn't get better? Something to that degree. And so, Matt, brother, thank you for the question. And I'm going to share an interesting story about you about that exact thing where the two grapplers, almost all things that you could possibly measure were about the same. But one of them got in better shape, and the other one, for some reason, could not get their cardio any better. And these two people, these two grapplers that I'm going to talk about in a second, are me and my buddy Chris. So go back in time to 2003 when I first started jiu-jitsu. I started with a few of my buddies from wrestling, and one of them was Chris. Chris happened to live with me at my mom's home at the time. And I mean, we lived like I had a room in the big, we had a big basement and lived in the basement. And we trained together. We ate the same food together. We lifted together. We did everything together. I mean, we separated for a few hours in the day when we had to go to work to pay for the stuff that we were doing, and he would go to class or whatever it is that we were doing, but then we would come back together to start training and doing all the stuff that we were doing. And at the time, I didn't have a car, so he had a car, so I couldn't get to the gym without him, and he trained a lot more with me being there. So we pretty much never had a class where one of us was there and the other one wasn't. So pretty much all of the variables that you would want to sort of control were about the same. For whatever reason, though, I got in way better shape. I remember my cardio went through the roof. But then for whatever reason, his was always like stuck. He never had that engine that you would want for grappling. And I remember he would always get out of breath. He would go into competitions and he would start his matches off pretty well, but then he would like gas out in the first round. Sometimes he would, win his matches because he won competitions too. But you would see this thing where he gassed out a lot. And it was strange. We didn't know what it was. And it worked this way for years. I remember we lived at my mom's house for a bit. And then later on, we moved into a very, very small apartment together. And we would train all the time together. But same thing. So for several years, it was like this. Now, Chris was about the same weight as me, slightly shorter than me, maybe 6 months older than me. I mean, all these things were so close together, right? Well, so the other day we were talking about this, and this is why I chose this question, because I was like, we were just talking about this the other day when he came over my house. So we were talking the other day, and it was interesting because during that time period, we were always trying to push him, go harder, man, all this stuff. But come to find out later as he got older, he went and had some tests done at the doctor. And there was a couple things going on. Number one, he had really bad sleep apnea. So when we used to sleep, like at my mom's house, for instance, right? We slept like just a few feet apart because it's, there's only so much space in this basement. So we're sleeping a few feet apart and he would snore like a freight train and I would hit him and then roll back over and go back to sleep, just so he would stop snoring. I could try to get back to sleep quickly because I couldn't sleep if it was going, right? And come to find out that snoring obviously was really bad sleep apnea. Now, he wasn't overweight. He just had bad sleep apnea. And then the other thing is he was crazy allergic. He's crazy allergic to everything. Like when they did these allergy tests, it was everything. It's ridiculous, right? He was allergic to cats, which we always had around when we lived together at my mom's and stuff like that. And I remember he was allergic to rats, which he had some rats at one point as pets, and dogs and trees and everything. The only thing, surprisingly, he's not allergic to apparently is horses. Go figure. So he's allergic to everything. Basically, he just couldn't breathe, bro. He had terrible sleep apnea and he had terrible allergies, so he just couldn't breathe and he couldn't get the oxygen and everything that he needed. Now, these days, right? Years later, he took a lot of time off just for different things with work and life and everything else. And when he's trained recently, he's much heavier now because, he kind of let himself go in some areas, right? And he's kind of getting back into lifting and training and stuff like that. So no biggie there. But he gained a lot of weight over the years. And what was interesting to see was him coming into the gym overweight, right? But was able to move better than he did when he was 18 years old. and 19 years old, and then was pushing himself. It was crazy to see that. And so again, I'm not saying that that's your problem, that you have allergies or sleep apnea, but it's just something to consider. I'm just sharing it, so maybe someone who maybe has these symptoms, maybe you get it checked out, and you make your quality of life much better. Again, if you're doing all the stuff like diet, exercise, doing your cardio work outside of the gym, trying to push yourself during rolling, those things will add up. But if for some reason you can't seem to push it past a certain point, it couldn't hurt to go see a doc and just have some tests run and see about these things, right? It would be interesting to see just to make sure, right? But again, I'm sharing that with you because that furry little issue of him with all the allergies to animals and dander and everything else, that was the culprit of his cardio problem back then. And again, I've actually had a few people over the years who've had similar issues where they had really bad allergies, they never really had them checked, or they had really bad sleep apnea, and it just wrecked their energy levels throughout the day. They get those things checked out and get those things fixed and treated, and magically, boom, they've got energy. So just a couple things maybe to consider, Matt. But yeah, that's my answer. Hopefully that helps you. Guys, I'll talk to you next time.